This conference will now be recorded.
Well, I guess I can start the reading of it. So we'll call the meeting to order. And prior to this, our regular monthly meeting, the Chevy Chase Village Board of Managers convened in closed session beginning at 6:45 p.m. in Village Hall pursuant to Section 3-305B7 of the General Provisions Article Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss strategy with and obtain legal advice from Village Council and pursuant to Section 3-305B1 of the General Provisions Article Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss personnel matters that affect specific individuals. And the board members in attendance voted unanimously to approve a raise and extension of the contract for the police chief and the village manager. So on to the regular meeting. The first thing we have to do is approve the minutes of the prior meeting, the previous meeting. You've read them.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Managers regular monthly meeting held on October 13th as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. The next thing on the agenda is the treasurer's report.
A couple of things, one quick and one almost as quick. As usual, we find out really how our income tax is likely to come out. We'll get that information toward the end of this month. So the next board meeting is the first one where we'll have some visibility on whether we're likely to have a surplus or a deficit as compared to the budget. Second thing I wanted to say, just for information, I imagine you know that our reserves are primarily in two places. There's the MILGIP, the Maryland Local Government Investment Pool, with about half of our reserves. And then the other half, we buy treasuries through a UBS office in town. Bonds are supposed to be boring, and government bonds are supposed to be really boring. They're supposed to be a really safe asset. It's not going to. However, bonds do go in reverse order of interest rates, and there's a lot of uncertainty right now with whether the tariffs are going to, all of that. So our investment policy limits us to 5-year maturity or less, because the longer maturity you go, the more bonds can fluctuate. And I have been in the past typically trying to, every time we have a bond that comes due, we replace it with another one that has around a 2-year maturity, so that we're getting a little bit better than we would in a Treasury money market fund, but not taking a lot of interest rate risk. However, for the past, I've changed that policy just a little bit, in that until this settles down a little bit, basically every time one of these bonds matures, we're just putting it in a Treasury-backed money market account, so that it's got zero interest rate fluctuation, and it's just like a regular money market fund, except it consists entirely of, it's backed by federal government obligations, as it has to be for us to be able to invest in it. So we already were very conservative in what we allowed ourselves to do investment-wise, and I've just made it a little more conservative at least until we find out whether the tariffs are going to stay or not. So, any questions available?
Thank you for your report. Next thing on the agenda, we have matters for board discussion, consideration, and possible action. We have a status update on Pepco and streetlights.
Last week, a petition to the Public Service Commission was filed on behalf of the municipalities that have been working together to reach an agreement with Pepco on a sales agreement and a third-party attachment agreement. We had been held up because the forms that were to be attached to, especially the third-party attachment agreement, had not been completed. And we have been very recently gotten more from Pepco on that. But the main issue that came up is it became clear as municipalities started looking at getting an estimate from Pepco as to what it was really going to cost to acquire the lights, street lights. We have a chart now that lets us know how much the lights will cost depending on when they were put in. And for most of the lights in most of the municipalities that have been there, high pressure sodium lights have been there for decades, long time. And so the cost is really very low. But we found out that a part that is mentioned in the attachment agreement, and it's a disconnect device or switch, is something that at first we thought was required for safety. And we came to the realization not only would it cost sometimes even more than the light itself costs to buy, because they are requiring that once you purchase the light, if you switch out to LED or within 9 years, whichever comes first, you're also required to install this disconnect device. We learned that it was not a safety requirement, that Pepco does not have those devices on their streetlights currently. The District of Columbia, which acquired all of their streetlights from Pepco, doesn't have those disconnect devices installed. And in fact, they're not for safety. They're to create, in essence, someplace that the connection will break if there's a surge in power from the Pepco side to the municipal side. And Pepco is requiring that to further limit their liability. That's the only reason, and they confirmed that. It was the only reason they were requiring this expensive additional outlay by municipalities that they want to buy their lights. And we've been trying to negotiate that with them for months through most of 2025. And they did not move on that.
So, do you want us to bring up the graphic of
Sure.
that so you can?
Yeah, so you can see what it is. If you look up there at the top where it says company owned secondary supply, you could make it a little smaller again. Yeah, right up there at the top. See, that's the secondary supply. What happens when Pepco sends power to the pole? They send it, and a very high voltage comes into the wires, 33,000. That goes down through a transformer to come down to a street light. The street light has 220 volts, which is about what you have in your house. And so you see that here. Once it's gone through the transformer, it goes into what's called Pepco's secondary supply, and that's what that reference is to those two wires that are the secondary. Pepco owns that. Then when a municipality acquires the street light, it owns the wire that attaches to those two street light service taps. And those two wires, that one and the other little square, just the little square there, and those two squares, that's where the municipal owned wire attaches to Pepco's secondary. The disconnect device is that long tube there. And it doesn't serve as a connection device because the lights are already connected. If it did, they'd be on all the current Pepco lights, but it's not. It's an add-on that's not necessary. It creates another point of failure. And what Pepco is insisting on is that their certified contractor put these in, not the municipal contractor. And the certified contractors are more expensive. And if you don't use one of their certified contractors, they insist on coming out and doing the inspection, and that charge $330 for each fuse that they're requiring. Currently, they're requiring 2. So we found this to be unreasonable because they're requiring that you do something on the municipal wire that's got nothing to do with the secondary supply that Pepco owns. And so but they have been unwilling to step back on that. So on Friday, we filed a petition with the Public Service Commission to relieve municipalities of that obligation in any agreement.
So we're asking that switch not exist.
Unless you want one.
So what does
Yeah.
it cost to have their contract for that?
If you don't use their contractor, it's $330 per, and they want two. If you do use their contract, and that's what's interesting, there's only 8 of them
You know,
through
Oh, contract.
the entire region. There's 8 of them, and they're not looking at bringing on any more. And our position is that what you need is an OSHA certified electrician to do the work on the municipal wire. The utility certified contractors have higher level of requirement that they have to live up to, and therefore they would charge you more if you're using them. Our expert that's been providing information to the negotiating team has said that they can routinely put these in if you're just using the OSHA certified electrician for $100, and the piece itself costs between $50 and $100. But even that expense costs more than some of the lights you're going to buy, and it's not necessary. The whole thing is not necessary.
Is the rationale just that in case of a power surge, the fuse activates and the light is saved?
Say,
Right,
Yeah.
and then we're willing to talk about waiving that, because the only time that you really have that happen is if there's a lightning strike. And our experts' experience in running systems in New England, a number of them in New England, with a lot of lights involved, said it just doesn't happen. It's a solution looking for a problem.
And if the fuse ever activated, then you'd need somebody to go out to replace the fuse before the light could be.
And the
used
whole
again,
thing
right?
would have to happen
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
over
okay.
again.
So
Yes.
why do they care?
I don't know. I don't
Do
know.
they really want to own those lights so badly?
My
could
impression.
the light explode under a surge? Is that the issue?
I think mainly what it does is it blows it out. But they wouldn't take, I mean, they wouldn't have, they are already protected from liability for third parties. We're insuring all that. So it's a first party issue. It's, I don't my
The only way-
my impression after speaking in these meetings that we would have online with their lawyers and me and our team, and is that the lawyers and a number of their administrative folks didn't actually understand what all this was. But we all came to an understanding about what it was because we explained it
To them.
to them. Yes.
But
And-
just in general, they've been dragging their feet for so many years and so forth. They must, can their owning these streetlights be so economically lucrative that they don't want to lose that?
Oh, well, the alternatives, yes. The alternatives to owning your own streetlights is purchasing them through a kayak or non-kayak from Pepco. And a kayak means that you pay ahead of time to them to replace the lights to LED. They're not going to do that for free. You pay them to do that. And you pay a lot of money up front to do that. Or even more expensive, you don't pay ahead of time and they spread it out in forever at the rates that Pepco has for doing all of this, which is much higher than going through your own contractor.
And just to explain, kayak is actually an acronym. It's construction in aid, charge in aid of construction.
Yes.
Charge in aid of construction, which is the term that they use for the charge that they then spread out over the entire network to pay for the cost of maintaining streetlights. And yes, it does seem to come down to the lost revenue that they are seeing by turning these streetlights over. And so it appears that they basically want to make it as difficult and as cost prohibitive as possible so that we all just continue to pay them unnecessarily at very, very high rates in perpetuity.
This is probably an unknown thing, but is there a soon to be online technology that would obviate the need for Pepco streetlights, that every streetlight has its own solar panel and battery and is independent of Pepco?
I haven't seen it at the street light side. I have seen it at pedestrian lighting. So where you see some municipalities,
Yeah.
I think Garrett Park is probably the closest example to the village of this, where you have more kind of understory lighting that is more, that is, maybe 10, 12 feet high and runs along the sidewalks. And much of that technology is going over to solar with LED, but I have not seen it at the street light.
I think you're gonna power a street light with a few square feet of
Even with a good battery? The stored, okay, never mind.
Well, this.
I know nothing about this. I just didn't want us to like purchase something and find out it's obsolete in 5 years because it's some wonderful thing online.
Well, right now, the state has required that they sell you their lights if you ask and can reach an agreement. You still have to be attached to their poles. You would have to have a change in the law to require that you be able to attach something else
Right.
to that pole.
Yeah,
So right now, that's your only option,
Yeah.
is to have that street light there of the type where they provide the power.
okay.
What's the strategy with the Public Service Commission? In that they've ruled in favor of municipalities in the recent past.
Yeah.
And they have to be equally tired of all the game playing on the part of Pepco. Is there kind of an escalation with them that is available to us or that we're already pursuing?
That's
Yeah.
what the petition is for.
Yeah.
That's how you address them. Because Pepco said that the municipalities agreed already to the form, and the Public Service Commission has already approved the form in its draft. We want to change that, and they were not going to voluntarily do that. So we petition that now it be done, because it's unnecessary, creates a barrier to entry for the municipalities, and also creates another point of failure for no good reason.
Yeah, probably it's just it's classic corporate. They don't want to be blamed for a drop in revenue. So if you can make it, if you cause the PSC to require it so that it wasn't because they didn't try hard enough, then they don't get blamed.
Well, to get them to negotiate like they did negotiate, we intervened, that this group intervened in the tariff proceeding, talked to the Public Service Commission, who ended up agreeing with municipalities that they were in fact blocking without having agreements available for templates agreements for available. And then Pepco, we were also seeking parallel legislative relief. And Pepco came in and said, oh, we can work this out. We will do it. And so don't pass any more laws to make us do it. And so they committed to the legislature that they would get it resolved. And we don't have it resolved yet.
When was that? What year?
22, 23?
Right,
23?
and there was another effort earlier this year at a bill that basically, 2024 session, in which Pepco said, we've got it, don't
we're doing
force
it.
anything else on us.
Was that Montgomery County delegation or larger group than that was pursuing?
It did start at the Montgomery County delegation. I can't remember if there were any co-signers from Prince George's County. I don't know that it's
No,
gotten that far.
But your negotiating team does have College Park in it, and there are a couple other municipalities. I know Cheverly's interested also. There's a number of them that are. what they're proposing for for doing it through Pepco is so expensive. Because you're paying for all of that bureaucracy.
Just, I told several of you this, but we went down, my wife and I went down and saw the Pride Parade back when the Pride Parade was happening, and the Pepco float was completely destroyed. I mean, it just it had fallen apart, and it just was such a great metaphor for.
It wasn't torn.
Yeah.
It was falling.
Yeah.
They just have a real bureau. This is an agency. Well, they're a monopoly, of course, but there's another municipality I represent that wishes to acquire a piece of property from Pepco that is not being used for anything. And it's in the middle of their town, and they'd like to acquire it to make it part of a public building. And the town was required to pay $1,500 just to apply to ask Pepco to consider it. Just to actually take up the question about whether they would consider selling.
Well, at one point, even in the streetlight process, Pepco was going
yeah.
to require us to pay to have an inventory of their own technology done. So they don't know exactly where all of their streetlights are. They didn't have records that would even tell them, hey, this is what we're going to come and purchase from you. And to get that inventory done, they wanted us to pay for their lack of record keeping. And thankfully, through a suit that was filed by one of our former delegates, the PSC said, no, it's your assets. You should have had records for this. You have to get it inventory. And so they begrudgingly did it. And then the inventory was an awful mess, and we had to clean it up here using Public Works employees for the village inventory.
Will this be most easily resolved just by the PSC petition, or should there simultaneously be a legislative effort? I mean, I got to think the legislators who've looked at this have to be a bit insulted that this is dragged on, and every time Pepco tells them, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of it, that over a 4-year period, that hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
So a 1-2 punch potentially to get it over the finish line, or is this just kind of
Well, one of the things that we talked about in our meeting on Friday with the other members of this coalition is that first we feel we need to update the other municipalities in Montgomery and Prince George's counties to bring them up to speed. Because if we are going to wage a strong legislative effort, we're going to need more than just the coalition of municipalities who are formally participating as interveners in this particular case. So Sue Ellen is preparing to make update presentations to first the Montgomery chapter of MML when they meet later this month. And then we're trying to also coordinate to have her make the same update to PGCMA, the Prince George's chapter. From that, I think we will have a better sense of what, if any, legislative action we want to try to take in the upcoming session. I don't know if you have a sense of the timing for when we will hear a response from the PSC to last week's petition.
I don't think it's going to be that long. Okay. Hopefully not. But they act as an administrative decision maker, but their rules are not very specific about anything. It's not like courts where you have to do something by a certain time and the other side has to answer by that time or any of that. Hopefully they'll take it up. We've asked for a hearing, and that would take a little while to get set, but just based on who's available when. It's going to be tight because we're coming up on the holidays.
So moving along.
Slowly.
Unlike the streetlight thing.
Exactly. So of course we'll continue to keep the
Yeah.
board updated. We continue to keep monies allocated in the capital budget, anticipating that we will finally cross over the ability to be able to make a full purchase and transition over to LED. But we wanted to make sure that the full board understood the real slog that we've been in and that we're going into yet another more formal fight through BSC. So.
Well, thank you very much for the report and all the work you're doing. Thank you, thank you. The next thing is our resolution to amend the Chapter 25 Public Rights of Way to rename the chapter, amend and reenact Section 6.3. Well, you can tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is an ordinance that would provide a process by which we would enforce for any encampments that may occur without our authorization in public spaces. This ordinance was posted to village website last Thursday and has been available for public comment. Thus far, we have not received any comment. We do not have anyone currently logged into the virtual meeting to be heard on this as a public hearing. But just to summarize, it does establish a process by which unauthorized encampments can be removed. It sets what we attempted to be a nominal fine for such violation so that there is an enforcement mechanism outlined within the fees and fines ordinance, which is Chapter 6, and then the process for any removal of illegal encampments that may come up. I think what's the most important takeaway for this is, although this is the ordinance, by policy, our process will be that any encampments that do occur here in the village, the first step will be to connect those individuals with whatever resources we can to get them the support and the help that they may need. And so that really is first and foremost. That will be developed ultimately into the general order that the chief will create for his officers. This just creates the actual law backbone that allows and sets forth a process for us to take action.
Great. Well, it's everybody has viewed this, and we are probably ready for a motion.
Move to adopt resolution number 1101-25 is draft.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next is the purchase authorization for the holiday giant gift cards.
Yeah, so we have, through some conversations with members of the board, we are proposing to increase the annual amount this year. It has been set at $150 since 2021. We're proposing to take it up to $200 per employee. This would include also our 2 temporary leaf collection workers and all 28 full-time employees. And this is the annual holiday gift from the board to the staff.
Motion?
I move to authorize the village manager to purchase 30 gift cards at a value of $200 each from Giant Food Grocery Store for dissemination to all active, permanent, and temporary employees for a total cost of $5,700.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So now we move on to the police report. Where's
Good
your
evening,
guitar?
all. So we had a pretty quiet month until October 31st, and that's when all of our theft from auto attempts happened. A couple of thefts and a couple of attempts. The odd one was the morning of the 31st, where a resident was awoken by somebody who was in their car nodding off. They're rummaging through the car and nodding off. He's a known substance abuser. So he had a nod off while in the car, and his head hit the steering wheel and hit the horn. So we were able to get there quick enough to find him, talk to him, identified him, ran him through, for warrants, got a consent search on him, didn't have anything on him that warranted any actions. The victim did not want to press charges, so we escorted him out of the village. Later found out that he was in 2 other cars that evening that were unlocked. And looking through them, neither one of those residents wanted to press charges either. Then later on in the morning, about between 9:50 and 12:30, we had a couple cars that were unlocked and broken into on Grafton Street by the church. One knew about it when their bank notified them of suspicious transactions over at Montgomery Mall. So they were able to kind of nip that a little bit and shut their cards down. So we are tracking any video from the Montgomery Mall to see if we can identify the suspects and cooperating with Montgomery County in the investigation. Administratively, Officer Amato put in her resignation letter. She is going to Bowie Police Department. I shouldn't have said how good Bowie was when I got here, but they had just recently moved down there, so I figured that was going to happen as soon as she moved into the city. So we are looking for a candidate to replace her. In the meantime, we will be selecting someone to move to from midnights to day shift. And on that particular shift, we'll move back to the power shift, 11 to 11. So we'll have double coverage part of the day and then part of the evening, until we get it filled. So we do have someone that's going on a ride along on Saturday, a retired Montgomery County officer. So hopefully she'll be interested and we'll be able to fill that fairly quickly. Let's see. So we have the next round of women's self-defense classes are now open for registration. That's February 25th through April 8th. We'll start to disseminate the flyer and get the word out. You saw our Toys for Tots box out there. That we're accepting toys now until December 13th, where I'll deliver them. Montgomery County still doesn't have a warehouse for the Toys for Tots, so I'll either deliver directly to that person or, worst case scenario, I'll take them over to one of the other counties, Toys for Tots, and we'll get them to some needy families. Other than that, any questions or concerns? That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Manager's report.
So the only thing that I wanted to just update the board on, that we have several years now into planning for a comprehensive update of the buffer area to address stormwater runoff, as well as bringing in new landscaping, given the conditions in that space with a lot of heavy canopy and so forth. Grass is certainly not going to continue to thrive in the buffer, so we need to plan for different plantings. We just over the weekend finally received the final plans and technical specifications to be able to advertise the project for bids. However, I am concerned that because the project has been in the design phase for so long, in the hands of various different individuals at our engineering firm, we've made several updates toward the latter half of the planning to be responsive to some requests from our Parks and Green Spaces Committee. And I think it would be appropriate for us to have an independent review of the project plan to really make sure that we are planning this as smartly as possible and for the long term. The original plan lasted us less than 20 years. We hope that this plan will last us far longer. And so we want to make sure that we have not, in the process of all of this transition and time, not missed anything. And of course, as you know, we don't have that kind of technical expertise on staff. We want to make sure that we are having a thorough look at these plans, at the technical specifications, to ensure that it really is the best solution for the long term for this very important green space here in the village. So I've spoken to some local consulting firms that do this type of third-party analysis of projects, and they have the capacity to make an assessment of this project and can do so in the timing of being able to still put this project out, advertising for construction bids over the winter so that we can go to construction in the spring. So I don't have pricing back yet for what this kind of review will cost, but we know that we can at least get it done in the time frame. My goal would be to proceed forward with this third-party assessment, provided that it comes back within my authorization threshold. Certainly, if I need to come back to the board for authorization, I will do that. But I think it will be important for us to do our due diligence and make sure that we've gotten an additional review before we take this project out to advertise it for bid. So happy to receive feedback from the board on that plan. But unless there's any objection, my goal would be to move forward with getting that third party assessment.
I'm highly supportive of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. That was the only specific thing I wanted to highlight from my report, unless there are any questions.
No, but we're that time of the meeting.
I really would like to adjourn, so I'm going to move that we do that.
All in favor? Okay,
Aye.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Fun times.